Hello everybody, my name is Indeimaus, and what the fuck? That's a good start to the video. Welcome back to another video. So Silent Hill is the most disturbing and terrifying horror franchise that has ever lived and died. Unfortunately, the series was brutalized by its creator. Konami did things to Silent Hill that are even more disturbing than anything from their games. They made a 3D movie out of it, they cancelled the promising Silent Hills, and then they turned it into a pachinko machine. Fuck me. The series is dead, and it has been for a while. Like I said, there was a glimpse of hope in Silent Hills, but Konami were pretty swift on removing that last breath. And I'm hoping if you're watching this in the future, that maybe Konami has sold the rights to Silent Hill to a different company that isn't run by literal Satan. Give it to Kojima, the team behind Until Dawn. Just give it to anyone else. Fucking anyone. Look. Anyone. Who cares? So in this video, we'll be discussing the top 10 Silent Hill enemies throughout all the games. Remember, this is only my opinion. If you disagree, leave your own list down below, and let's leave a hashtag fuck Konami as well. Let's make Jim proud. I've also brought the marvelous Jordan underneath on board to share his personal enemies and stories, so I'll contact him a little bit later on. I wonder if, is the mic picking that shit up? What the hell is going on? This video is a disaster. Let's just get on with the video. Let's jump into the list, shall we? Top 10 Silent Hill enemies. Let's go. The lying figure is an iconic enemy from Silent Hill 2. Its design, like many of the other creatures you'll face in this title, is overall very feminine. It's wearing heels that look like they're made from rotten flesh, and it looks as if it's bound in a skin straitjacket. Not to be confused with the enemy named the straitjacket from Origins, or even the armless figure from the first Silent Hill movie, which is actually an incarnation of this lying figure. Something that makes the creatures from most of the Silent Hill series stand above the other enemies from horror games is the symbolism behind them. Every monster in Silent Hill 2 has some sort of connection to our protagonist James Sunderland. The lying figure is supposed to represent a squirming, tormented hospital patient, representing James's wife Mary in her state of terminal illness. There's so many different theories or speculations that people have for how certain creatures can relate to James, and there's no way for me to cover all of them throughout this video. It's going to be like 20,000 minutes long, but I will try to cover what I believe and the symbolism that I researched. So along with being stereotypically feminine, it's also seen as being over-sexualized to tie in with the theme of sexual frustration that's very prevalent with James throughout Silent Hill 2. But we'll get into that a little bit later, if you know what I'm saying. I don't even know what I'm saying, to be honest. If we continue with the thought that it's actually representing his wife Mary, it's possible that its ugly or gross nature is how James saw her, or even how she saw herself when she was in hospital. She mentions to James that she looks like a monster. Mary seemed to be very self-conscious with how she looked. I know you're probably thinking, this thing is just a gross mass and there's nothing sexual or feminine about it, but that doesn't change the fact that it has no clothes, it has long female legs, high heels, and a visible butt. I'll be honest with you guys here, visible butt is something I thought I would never be saying in a video. But this is the age we live in, everybody. It's on the internet forever now. Well, if the lying figure didn't have enough leg for you, here's 2 times the leg in the Mannequin. Again, something I thought I'd never be saying. This is another horror from Silent Hill 2. Although, to be honest with you, on many occasions, the animation of them scrambling across the ground was actually pretty funny. But then there's the other occasions where it just jump scared the shit out of me because it would just appear from nowhere scrambling across the ground in my flashlight. Ugh. The Mannequin shuffles along the ground like a human spider when James approaches them. Unlike other enemies though, it doesn't warn you of their presence because the radio will remain silent no matter how close you are until they start making that dash. They're not really that strong or intimidating, but they do have a similar theme behind their symbolism as the previously mentioned lying figure. The Mannequin is a manifestation of James's natural urges and inclinations. Again, going back to the sexual frustration felt by James towards his terminally ill wife. They also featured in one of the most disturbing cutscenes, introducing a certain character that I would hate to spoil because it's totally not obvious that he's going to be on the list. wink wink. But much like the lying figure, the Mannequin 2 represents Mary. If you love legs, you're gonna love the Mannequin. If you hate legs, what? Why would you hate legs? The fuck? Originally this was just a spot for the Mannequin, but the list changed around a little bit and I had to add the Abstract Daddy here as well. He originally had his own little spot a bit later on, but there's so many fucked up enemies from Silent Hill I had to do some fusing here. The Abstract Daddy is a four-legged lump of flesh, resembling two figures under a massive muscle. The lower one looks like it's trying to get away from the larger dominant one on top. The symbolism behind this one is pretty clear when you're following the story of Angela. She was molested by her father as a child and then murdered him as revenge. Her guilt produced the Abstract Daddy in Silent Hill. The Closer is another common enemy, this time from Silent Hill 3. The first encounter you have with this monster is in a cutscene in the clothing store, as it's feeding on a corpse. It approaches our protagonist Heather and she guns it down. Pretty well for seeing something like this for the first time as well. Just saying. And look, I know she sees it in the dream earlier, but it doesn't count, okay? I know if I saw this in the clothing store, I would be dead. You know, that's it. Indeimaus, rip. It's another female form creature. Also looks as if it's wearing a skirt of some sort. The main characteristic, of course, is the huge, thick arms that look like they're being used as punching bags. They also have two sharp blades that can be extended outwards like fingers underneath the arms. They also emit this gross, wet, disturbing sound from their lipped faces. I'm not sure how I can extend on that one. I did think about putting the Mandarin in this spot as well, which were featured in Silent Hill 2. Those creatures that would hang underneath you on those gates, but I felt the Closer was a little more prominent of an enemy and its similarities to the Mandarin are pretty obvious. As far as the symbolism goes, there's some really good speculation for this one. My personal favourite is the distorted interpretation of mall shoppers. Since his bulking arms could be seen as shopping bags and the fact that it's in a shopping centre and his mouth is the only feature on his face, possibly poking fun at the fact that mall shoppers always talk way too much at the top of their lungs. As someone who's been in retail for almost 7 years, I'd rather have these things walking around than some of my customers. Let's get a hashtag relatable on that one. Am I right, kids? This is just weird. Hi guys. Oh god, my voice cracked. I'd like you to meet Asphyxia, a blood-curdling manifestation of Margaret Holloway's memories of her daughter. A huge mass of female bodies merged together like a human centipede, except with no legs and all arms. She's a boss from Silent Hill Homecoming. I've covered a lot of enemies from the older games, but I wanted to throw something from one of the newer titles in here. I know they're nowhere as good as the oldies, but they still had some great designs and ideas in them. The previously mentioned Margaret Holloway was a member of the Order. It's behind a lot of the chaos that goes on in the Silent Hill series. To appease her dark god, Holloway strangled her daughter Nora, which gave birth to this horrific creature. The strangling represented in the hands which cover Asphyxia's body and choke her neck. There's evidence that shows her daughter Nora also loved to read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which could explain Asphyxia's form to be similar to the caterpillar character from that world. All that aside, the main reason I chose Asphyxia for the list is her character design. It looks like she fits in the world of Silent Hill, but is also different enough from the other bosses in the franchise. Childlike, knife-wielding monsters found in the Midwich Elementary School in the original Silent Hill. Goddamn these things. So this is the first enemy on the list from the original game. They're also seen in the original Silent Hill movie. You know, the decent one of the two. By no means are the Grey Children the most disturbing or gross enemy in a Silent Hill game, and honestly this was a pretty hard spot to fill. I was going through the enemies from the first game and found these to be the most memorable, personally. The symbolism on these demon children are a little more obvious than the things from the later games. They're found in a school and Alessa's perception of her classmates is seen through her eyes. If you don't know who Alessa is, she's presented as the driving force behind the events of the series and easily one of the most important characters in Silent Hill. Her story is an incredibly sad one. She was a suicidal, depressed, and tortured girl who only wished for people to love her. She was relentlessly bullied in primary school for being a witch, for having supernatural mental powers, and that's why her vision of her classmates are as horrific as these grey children. And when I say bullied, it wasn't just being called names or something like I'm sure we've all endured. This was extremely brutal stuff. Even all her friends abandoned her for being different. Being completely alone or feeling like you're on the outside is one of the worst feelings there is. And then just imagine having that at such a young age. Fuck you, grey children. And honestly, that's just one of the reasons it's one of the coolest. Alright, there's something going on underneath. I need to make a phone call. Bear with me, fellas. ladies and gentlemen. Bear with me.
Hello?
Hey Jordan, what's up?
I'm not Jordan.
Oh, you're not Jordan. You sound exactly like him. That's weird. Is he there by any chance?
Oh yes, he's sitting right next to me.
Who are you talking to?
No one, shut your filthy mouth! Hello?
Hello? Why are we saying hello again?
Hey, give me the phone back!
Oh, it's me speaking this time.
Oh, hey man. I'm hearing some funky sounds coming from my basement. Just wondering if it's you down there.
Me? I'm not in your basement, I'm in my basement. Although the sounds you heard might have been me, the insulation in these walls are terrible.
Yeah, you're right. It's terrible. Do you want to talk about a Silent Hill monster?
Yes?
If I had to pick one monster that really resonated with me from the Silent Hill series, or at least one monster that's not already on this list, I would have to go with God from Silent Hill 3. God is the final boss of Silent Hill 3. The last thing Heather Mason has to face to put an end to the hellish nightmare plaguing her all throughout the game. You know why I love this boss battle so much? Well, it's not exactly for the boss battle itself, but more for the way the boss is built up. The coolest thing about this monster is, it's actually living inside Heather throughout the entirety of the game. At the end, Heather vomits out a demonic writhing fetus, an early embodiment of the dark god she's destined to give birth to, according to the evil cult and the dark magic of Silent Hilliness. But because Heather rejected birthing the god, the game's crazed antagonist Claudia grabs and swallows it herself. Because she's dumb. Now see, this is the biggest reason I love this monster. This beast at the end isn't just some evil final boss. It's the literal manifestation of an entity that's been with you throughout the whole game, and the character Claudia. And Claudia isn't just an evil antagonist either. She's a tragic character with a lot of backstory behind her. I've always liked Claudia as a villain. I like her way more than Dahlia, the evil old lady from the first game. Dahlia was just a selfish and sinister character. There was nothing very interesting about her at all, but Claudia is tragic. According to the game's lore, Claudia was raised alongside Alessa, or Heather, as a little girl. She was abused as a child, beaten, brainwashed, and screamed at by her parents. And she talks to Heather throughout the game like some long-lost sister. So, like most Silent Hill monsters, there's a lot of emotion and deep connection here. But even beyond all that, the god creature itself is pretty amazing. Before you even fight this thing, you have to jump into a hole, a really frightening, demented hole that just looks like the perfect doorway to hell. And then, once you jump down there, you're confronted by the Thing. A giant half-skeletal female with fucked up arms, stubby legs, and a twitching head, determined to cleanse the world and end all humanity as we know it. And the fight begins. And? Yeah, there's not much else to say. But it's awesome. It's awesome, it's awesome, and it's awesome. And I fucking love it.
I absolutely needed to throw in a tribute to the recently deceased Silent Hills. Lisa from PT is easily one of the most terrifying and horrific individuals I've had the pleasure of interacting with over the last 5 years of horror games. She's an apparition of a grinning woman who, spoilers for PT, was murdered by her husband. Along with her smile, she's also missing an eye and covered in blood. If you've played PT or seen footage of it, the way she's standing at the end of a hallway with the extremely realistic visuals is something that is burned in my head forever. So I guess Silent Hills will always be a part of me, in a nightmarish way. Amazingly enough, even though this is a literal playable teaser, there's still some symbolism behind Lisa. The fact she's missing her eye and you find a photo with the word "gouge it out" written on it could be referencing the saying "an eye for an eye," which would mean Lisa is seeking revenge on her husband for the murder. It also mentions on the Silent Hill wiki that it could be a biblical reference. Quote, "If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than your whole body to be thrown into hell." End quote. Also, as mentioned, her dress is covered in blood. It's mentioned that she was shot in the stomach while she was pregnant, presumably killing the baby as well, which is likely that creepy fetus creature in the sink. Oh, God. Talking about this saddens me more, because of the fact that we're not going to be seeing any more of this. Let's just move on. Oh, God. Can we just burn this thing now? This pleasant creation is the twin victim, and is first encountered in the water prison of Silent Hill 4, The Room. There's just something off about a monster when it has baby heads but adult arms and hands. I don't like it. Honestly, it looks like it could be in a Souls game or even Bloodborne. I think there's a lot less speculated symbolism on the twin victims than the previously mentioned enemies. Its design is conjoined twins, which occurs when fertilized cells fail to split properly, making the two beings fuse together. Our lead character, Walter Sullivan, has a deranged level of attachment and misunderstanding of his mother, and it's revealed how attached he is to her. The twin victims could just be a manifestation of this attachment, but the way they point at you and whisper, their low-toned grunts, and the way they move around the room so quickly, these guys deserve their spot on the list. The nurse is a reoccurring staple of the Silent Hill franchise. This enemy, as well as the number one on the list, are the most well-known and important creatures from Silent Hill. One of the coolest scenes from the original film spotlights these nurses with their creepy, twitchy movement and the attraction to light. And I'm sorry to bring up the film before the games, but I thought I'd just get that out of the way. The first game had nurses in them, but not as most of us know them today. They were known as the puppet nurses in the first game and looked a little more like this. That is not pleasant. The symbolism will, of course, change throughout the games, but these puppet nurses are created from Alessa's memories with the time she spent hospitalized. My personal favorite and the most well-known design of these enemies are from Silent Hill 2, and they're known as the Bubblehead Nurse. And they're one of the most human-like enemies within the game. A thin bandage completely covers their head, with the only exposed part of their face being their teeth and jaw. Much like the other horrors, they're extremely twitchy. Something I find both interesting and horrifying about these monsters in any type of media is if it's twitching maniacally. Shit freaks me the hell out, and I guess it freaked out someone over on the design team as well, because they use that shit to great effect. The fact that they're dressed like nurses also link with his wife's illness. I won't have time to cover all the different types of nurses and their symbolism for each game because this shit is already getting too long. But the nurse also shows up in Silent Hill 3 as an even more human-like figure. She's missing the bandages from her face, but still has the blood dripping from her mouth. Heather from Silent Hill 3 is a reincarnation of Alessa from the original Silent Hill. So the nurses have a similar symbolic link to the first game. The classic nurse design is mostly gone for Silent Hill 4 though, and replaced with the patient, but they return later in Origins, Homecoming, Downpour, the films, and even Book of Memories. But we don't talk about Book of Memories. One of the most iconic horror franchise enemies of all time. Even if you've never played Silent Hill, chances are you've heard of Pyramid Head, and know what he looks like. He became so popular, almost to a downfall, appearing in absolutely everything they could shove him into after debuting in Silent Hill 2. I don't have to remind everyone of Revelations, right? That scene where he's turning a merry-go-round? The fuck? Jesus Christ. We've gone too far, people, as a human race. This is it. But focusing on the positive, let's focus on the positive, people. The Red Pyramid Thing is an incredibly simply designed horror from the mind of Mashiro Ito. I apologize if I butchered your name. Originally, his focus was to cover the face with a mask to make him less human-like and more disturbing, but the thought of a man in a mask wasn't scary enough, so that's when he designed a huge hunk of pointy metal to cover his head and upper body. He also shares similarities with the occult's executioners in the Silent Hill history. I feel as if I could make an entire video dedicated to this monstrosity with the amount of media he's been in and all the symbolism behind him, but again, I'll just focus on what I'm familiar with and what I'm interested in. His first ever appearance is creepy and extremely subtle, the way horror should be. I'm not talking about his abuse cutscene, but the one where he's just standing behind the bars with a red glow in the Woodside apartments and you just stare at him for a while, wondering what the hell it is before moving on. Of course, then you're exposed to him abusing previously mentioned mannequins. James hides in a nearby closet and Pyramid Head looks as if he grows tired of the mannequins and drags them around with him, and it looks like he senses James is close by. When I played this when I was a little younger, I believed that all the interactions with Pyramid Head were of the same being, but it turns out there's multiple versions of him. He's not just a single entity. Proof of this, of course, is near the end of Silent Hill 2, where there's two of them, wielding spears. One of the most memorable scenes personally is when you're caught with him in the stairwell, which is flooded, and he's wielding the great knife, just slowly following you around, and you just run away from him, not knowing if your weapons are doing any damage or what the fuck to do, and you just get... That's how I feel. Is the best way to fucking sum it up right now. As far as symbolism goes, I'm only going to be covering Silent Hill 2 in this portion. Pyramid Head is a manifestation of James's desire for punishment for his wife Mary, as well as his guilt. In the chase scene where he's coming for James and Maria, he murders Maria to remind James that he did the same to his wife. Pyramid Head continues to torment James with the fact he murdered his wife, even though James denies it, until finally admitting what he's done and causing Pyramid Head to shove their heads in their fucking spikes. And when they die, that means their duty is complete for James's journey in Silent Hill. And lastly, it is also possible that Pyramid Head is the dark version of James, like the evil side of him. So that's a good theory as well. Is it a theory? Or is it real? Could be both. Could be real and theory, baby. Could be a bit of both. You never know what's gonna happen next. I'm going insane from reading this fucking script. So I'm gonna go just stop. Thanks for watching, everybody. Holy shit, was this a big undertaking of a video. This is probably the biggest script I have ever written, and it's probably some of the most disturbing things I've ever written about, but I loved every second of it. As you can probably tell, I'm still playing around with a different presentation style. I think it'll depend on the video. If it's I don't want to just have the same presentation style for every video, just for the sake of it. So, I don't know, we'll see. Let me know what your favorite style is of video that I present. If it's non-live action, or if it's live action with people, or whatever. Leave it all down below. And of course, shout out to all my Patreon supporters. They continue to make this work and content possible, so thank you very much. If you want to check out my Patreon, if you can throw me $1 a month, that's like the equivalent of watching like 1,000 ads in a month. So it is like helpful. Don't think like I won't do the dollar. Who can be bothered? It does help. Believe me when I say it does help. Thank you, everyone. Also, a big shout out to Jordan underneath for coming on board and talking about his favorite enemies and stuff. It is really pleasant to be able to work with people. Definitely Jordan, very creative guy, so we were bouncing ideas off each other for that whole middle section and just throughout the whole list. Turns out, it's a lot less lonely when you're working with someone. So that's nice. Seriously, go subscribe to Jordan if you haven't already. Puts a lot of work into what he does, and it shows. My name is Indeimaus. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys soon with some more videos.